Please. And so, how wonderful it is to welcome you all here this morning. And my name is Reverend Celeste Frazier. I'm Associate Minister here at Unity of Washington, D.C. Welcome, welcome, welcome all. Welcome all live streamers, love streamers. You are at your divine appointment. You have arrived and all is well. So I want to absolutely appreciate how rich our music team is and how blessed we are to have them. And I want to also think about all of the blessings that we have in our lives. And you can think about going from home to work to church to wherever you go and just think about the abundant blessings that your Father, Mother, God provides. Yes. My topic today is who's your daddy? Now, I know it's often used as a way to show mastery over something or perhaps dominance over someone. It's an interesting need to want to have dominance over someone, isn't it? We certainly see it in our politics as one asserts their capableness, but some, especially God the Father, does not need to assert its omnipotence. We all know that God is omnipotent. We all know that God is good. We all know that we can expect nothing less than good each and every moment of our lives. But some, especially God the Father, is simply God. God is simply God. And sometimes we know that, and sometimes we forget that God is God. Sometimes we think that God has become absent, that God has taken a leave, that God's on break, that God's on vacation. But God is God, and God is the only presence and power there is. Ernest Holmes says, our capacity to think, live, to move, or do anything is non-physical and non-material. This invisible presence within us is the higher power which acts through our actions, wills through our minds, and reveals itself in what we do. At the center of our being is the divine. Let's just be with that for a moment, because we may think about what's happening with our stomach, what's happening with our heartburn, what's happening with, I got an itch here, I got a pain there. But at the center, if we could just remember that at the center of ourselves is God. And yet God does not shout about it. He's not shouting that he's the all in all. Not like we do when we slam a playing card on the table or dunk a ball into the basket, We got to, show off and, make some kind of a gesture to remind people of how bad you are. In other words, how good you are. And so we have this ego. We know that means edging God out. But ego takes credit for our accomplishments. We decide, oh yeah, look how well I did and look how good I am and all of that. Sometimes ego even takes credit for a strategy. God doesn't even sometimes get credit for a thought. And yet it is omnipresent. It is our center. And I just personally love the fact that I have 24-hour access to him. And I'm speaking of God the Father in the masculine. Normally I do both mother and father God. But today I'm just going to focus on the giving aspect of God in terms of the masculine, right? And so I'm knowing that it is our center. And even when we are absent from God, God is present. Think about June Cleaver on Leave It to Beaver, for those of you who are of a certain age. she would say to Beaver, wait till your father gets home. And Beaver would get all nervous and everything because it's like he would start to think twice about what he did when the thought of his father coming home and hearing what he did was so intimidating. And so Ward would be coming in, and, he was actually very calm. He was like, well, what's Beaver afraid of anyway? Because he just sits them down and talks to them, right? But fathers, remember, and I'll be doing a christening right after the closing songs today, you have the privilege to stand sponsor for God. This is a trust given to fathers from God. The same is true for mothers. Not only mothers who stand for both mother and father, but fathers who stand for both mother and father. Truth be told, we are all God's sponsors. For those of you who are parents, don't you wish you had eyes on your minor children 24/7? Shoot, some of you gray-haired folks might even wish you had eyes on your gray-haired children. I'm just saying. I know that's true for me and my mother. But many of us take that phrase, brother's keeper, as a very limited way. We think we may only look at our blood family and may include some close friends, may include our extended family. But I will ask, who is not your brother? Who is not your sister? We're very good at separating ourselves. People I know and people we don't know, or people of our race, or people who vote like we do. It's like there are these enclaves, these cliques, these groups that separate themselves out, and who is not part of this particular group is an other, right? And so I was thinking about how fathers can admonish their children. And I thought about my father admonishing my brother to not beat me up. And that's a whole nother conversation. But in Matthew 12, Jesus asks, who are my brothers? And Jesus points to his disciples and says, anyone who does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother. That doesn't limit us even to a country. Brother, sister, mother doesn't have to be in these United States. Doesn't limit us to a political party, even as much as there may be bias. Brothers and sisters and mothers doesn't limit us to Christians. It doesn't limit us to New Thought. It doesn't limit us to straight folks. It doesn't limit us to black people. It doesn't limit us to white people. It doesn't limit us to red people or yellow people. That doesn't even limit us to those who are righteous. Because remember, he said, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. Now, if you think of God in the old thought paradigm, you might expect punishment. Well, punishment is at hand. I better do right. My whole motivation is that I will be punished. So I better not do that because. But what about, I am doing this because I love you. I am doing this because you are my brother. I am doing this because you are my sister. I'm doing this because you are my mother, my father. So you may, be really familiar with an Eastern religion, and you may say, oh, well, I won't do it because I don't want the karma, right? You may be shaking in your boots or in your pumps with the thought that, what goes around comes around, right? Because New Thought folks know about the law of cause and effect. And I think about growing up in traditional religions, like I grew up Catholic, and I remember thinking, okay, well, I said so many Hail Marys and so many Our Fathers and so many acts of contrition after going to confession, that means that God's going to redeem me from my sins. I didn't even have to be earnest in my prayer. I was only told to say them. I didn't even get asked to commune with God. I was only asked to say the words. And so you think about how many times just saying the words you think is enough, but it isn't when you don't have an earnest desire to make a difference, to make a change, to do something different, to make a different choice. And so today, I know this sin is an acronym for separation in nothing. That's my own acronym for it. And the term sin comes from SYNE, which is an archery term for missing the mark. And I think if people knew that they had just missed the mark, that perhaps they wouldn't beat up on themselves so hard and they wouldn't feel so lacking in self-esteem if they just knew that they just missed the mark. That's all. And it doesn't matter whether we say, well, I could have aimed better, or, it was the wind, or you may want to deflect it or default it to something else or somebody else. But it's just missing the mark, sin. I think that's why in Mark 10, when Jesus called for the children to come, he wanted the vibration of the innocent near him, to let them also be in his Christ vibe, right? When children are young, for the most part, they have a tendency to be merciful till they get to a certain age. Then it's about revenge. But for the most part, merciful means not only to love your neighbor, but to love your enemies and pray for those who hate you. That seems like a really tall order. It's really easy to love the people who are nice to you. It's really easy to do that, but to pray for those who hate you feels like, I need to do my own healing before I can even get into just loving them, right? And it's an interesting process to consider. And I have to say, there's all kinds of different divisions. No matter where you may go in the country, if there are certain populations who come into a particular neighborhood, if, some Asians take over a store in a black neighborhood or whatever it is, and I have to say, being here like a year and a half or something, I'm so over the county conversation. I was at this birthday gathering yesterday, and the conversation of PG County versus Montgomery County, I'm like, would y'all stop with that? I was meeting some of these people for the first time. However, they did convince me to consider changing my county to lower my housing costs, and I might actually take them up on that. But, I said to them, I'm not having that separation conversation. I'm not having it. But in the context of who is your father, a father provides a seed. A seed must be accepted into the soil for anything to grow into fruition. Be it a plant, animal, human, sea, mountain, whatever. Now, the word compassion in Hebrew and Aramaic means womb. Think about that. Think about the seeds of thought that you allow to be planted in your consciousness. It's like giving birth to something. It's like holding something and nourishing something. You could even be nourishing negative energy, but it's that seed that's in you that you keep feeding, right? So think about the seeds that you allow into your inner self, into your inner thought processes. Think about how, and this is according to Marcus Borg, compassion is located in the loins. And he says this is in the Bible. This is daddy and two twins. Well, that's redundant. Twins are two. But anyway, they're getting christened after the closing songs today. Yay. So we think about compassion in the Bible says that the loins are located, the compassion is located in the loins. And in women, compassion is located in the womb. And in men, it's in the bowels. And I'm thinking, wow, that's interesting. So think about what compassion means in terms of feeling. So compassion means to feel with, right? It's not feel against. And that's from the Latin. Etymology is very important. So compassion means feeling the feeling of someone. Feeling the feeling of someone else in a visceral way. Beyond the head. And we get to be moved by what's happening with someone else other than ourselves. We get to be moved by the suffering that we see. We're moved by the wars that are going on right now. We're moved by what's happening in Ukraine. We're moved by what's happening in Pakistan. We're moved by the acts that are being taken by the different countries against each other. We're seeing the decimation. We're seeing the pain. We're seeing the destruction. We're seeing all of this. And so we don't become numb to it, especially when we're looking at individuals, right? So beyond the biological question of who's your daddy, ask yourself, what seed has been planted in my consciousness? And you can tell what seed has been planted in your consciousness by the thoughts that you are thinking. The seed has been planted in your consciousness when it stays on your mind, perhaps all day, perhaps intermittently during the day, perhaps at night, perhaps in your dreams. But that's what's happening is there's a seed that has been planted. And is this a seed that I want to water? Is this a seed that I want to uproot? Is this a seed that I want to have my energy intertwined with? Is this a seed that has a mission for my life? Is this a seed that can impact my life in a horrific way? Like God told Cain, your brother's blood cries out to me. We know what Cain did. He killed his brother. Can you hear your brother cry out? Can you hear your sister cry out? I don't necessarily mean that it's your biological brother or your biological sister. It could be. You could be seeing your mother in pain. You could be seeing someone close to you in pain. But beyond who you consider your family by blood, do you feel the cry of the people that you see in pain or in suffering? If you hear a cry, I invite you to be merciful, be compassionate. Remember who your Father is. Remember the tender mercies of God. The Latin term imitatio Dei means Be compassionate as God is compassionate. Jesus established Imitatio Dei different than the Old Testament, right? In the Hebrew Bible, and that's what they call the Old Testament, we call it Hebrew Bible. Imitatio Dei meant be holy as God is holy. Be holy as God is holy. But for Jesus, because compassion is the nature of God, Imitatio Dei means be compassionate as God is compassionate. You felt that, didn't you? And that's what made Jesus a radical. He wasn't being caught up by, those Pharisees who want to act spiritual, or those holy people who want to act like they know God. He wanted to be the person who knows God, not just because it looks good or it sounds good or people may think a certain thing about you. So compassion is really about feeling the feeling of someone else beyond your head, into your heart. He wanted that to be the way that people dealt with each other. And for that, they called him a radical. He wasn't just looking at the book and seeing what the book says and telling people what the book says. He was living in a way that said, this is what compassion looks like. This is how you treat your brother. This is how you treat your sister. This is how you move around life, giving of yourself. And so all of this, ideas of what it means to imitate God, is not imitating what it means to be holy. It's imitating what it means to be compassionate. And so this is the invitation for us when we look at somebody who makes different choices than we do. When they make different choices about their sexuality, when they make different choices about their politics, when they make different choices about the clothes that they wear. I know y'all don't judge people by their clothes. You don't judge people about their cleanliness, right? Right, choir? You don't judge people about how they smell, right? I'm not trying to step on your toes in case you do, but the invitation is to go beyond that, to be more expansive than that, to remember who your Father is and imitate what you know God to be, not by taking on a role as an actor or an actress, but by thinking about the nature of the Christ, what it means to live in the mindset that Jesus lived in. Think about the Christ consciousness that you talk about and be about it. Right? And so the Christ consciousness means that if somebody makes a mistake, perhaps we need to give them another chance, another opportunity to do better. By forgiving them, by trying to see the way that they see, by attempting to understand them. Because the way that we are is absolutely impacting other people's lives. When we are in judgment, when we determine that one is not good enough, when we determine that you are better than someone else, when you determine that that person is lesser than you or that person is better than you, we have to remember to have compassion for ourselves first and foremost, because we cannot have compassion for anyone else if we don't have it for ourselves. And so that does mean there's a kind of a release that has to happen. There's a kind of a a healing that has to happen. I'm not going to call it an exorcism, but it's kind of like that. It's kind of like you have to get that idea of a devil out of your head so that you're not constantly seeing yourself as a bad person, as a villain, even though you may not say it out loud. Every time you make a mistake does not require you to punish yourself in some way. Every time you make a mistake requires you to learn how to do things differently. And so when you come into a state of compassion for yourself, well, Celeste, I know you could have done better than that. Tim, I know you could have done better than that. But whoever says something to you about you that is disparaging in any way, I invite you to forgive them. I invite you to try to understand them, because compassion does require that. In trying to understand them means perhaps they were brought up a certain way. Perhaps they had a certain kind of faith that was narrow. Perhaps they had a certain kind of neighborhood that was narrow, that they didn't understand other cultures. And perhaps they had a way that they were taught that it was dangerous to be around someone like you, or somehow they would be looked upon as a lesser if they hung around people who look like you, right? And we have to do the same, whether we're judging people by their appearance, by their clothes, by their faith, by whatever it is, that we have this great opportunity to go beyond the outer and connect with the inner that is in each and every being. I'm not going to even just say person, because y'all who are, fur mommies and daddies know that you treat them as if you gave birth to them, right? And so when you have these fur babies that need love, you don't throw them out when they crap on your couch, right? You don't beat them up when they, scratch up your clothes or your sheets or whatever it might be. And so that means love is greater than disdain. Love is greater than judgment. Love is greater than criticism. Love is greater even than hurt. I'm going to let you breathe on that one. This is a new book. It's called Works of Heart. I'm a contributing author to this. It'll be in the bookstore next week, and we'll be doing it in the book club later in the spring. But here is a compilation of writings from different people in New Thought across different New Thought organizations. And this is a poem that I put in there. I've got 3 pieces in here, and this is one of them. Love lives is the name of it. Love presses, it will not be denied. Love remains, it will not be diminished. Love transforms, it will not be destroyed. Love will be what it needs to be. Love will be when it needs to be. Love will be how it needs to be. Love is life. Life is love. Even when disguised as its very opposite, love teaches. Even when the student is absent in heart or body, the heart remains. Though bodies perish, love lives. Though monies deplete, love gives. Love presses sorrow into joy, freedom into truth, darkness into light, hatred into understanding. Love lives. Namaste. So let's move into meditation time. How wonderful it is to be able to breathe. We may take it for granted, but that breathing thing keeps us on this side of the dirt. Keeps us out of hospitals. So let's just become aware of the breath in our body temple. Let's become aware of how the breath oxygenates every one of the trillions of cells in our bodies. Every time oxygen is given, our cells cry out in gratitude. They multiply. In the oxygen, blood flows. In the oxygen, lungs relax as we breathe each breath. We are filled and we release. This is the givingness of God, the Father. We are nurtured by this oxygen as we breathe. It supports our limbs, our organs, our brain. We simply allow ourselves to be still and know that in each one of the trillions of cells is the presence of God. As we live, the light of God shines through each one of us. As we breathe, we are strengthened by the grace of God. As we relax into the breathing, we give our minds an opportunity to pause from having to think a thought or do a thing. As we meditate, we allow ourselves to be in peace. To rest. To release. We give ourselves permission to be without doing. We let God be God as our lives. In gratitude, we let it be. And so it is. Amen. And now we'll have a musical selection with the Richard Payne Trio, with Richard Payne here. And our home choir, Unity of Washington, D.C. Choir. Feels good to feel the fullness of that music from the choir, yes? Let the drops fall down on me, while the drops are also pouring in us from within us. Let's move into our affirmations now. Today's affirmations will come up on the screen. I'll say them first, and then we'll say it together. I live in the holy omnipresence. All days are holy days. I am ever ready to acknowledge God's presence in my heart. The true church is the heaven within me. Together, I live in holy omnipresence. All days are holy days. I am ever ready to acknowledge God's presence in my heart. The true church is the heaven within me. Got it? Good. At this time, I would like to extend a warm welcome to those of you who have joined us for the first time, virtually and in person. If this is your first time joining virtually, you will be invited to click on that link that's in the chat and complete the Unity of Washington, D.C.'s visitors form that comes up. And then a member of our staff will reach out to you and send you a visitor's package at your request. If this is your first time here in person, please stand or raise your hands. Let the ushers know we have something we'd like to gift you. We have some people here. If you live in the area, we invite you to come again. If you're traveling through, we wish you Godspeed on your journey. Thank you for coming by, stopping through here. We are blessed by your presence. So now it is time for us to bless our offering. We don't pass the baskets here for those of you who are here for the first time. We have receptacles in the rear of the sanctuary where you can deposit whatever blessing that you feel that you want to give by means of what you've received here, and know that this is another way that you can be part of the circulation of your own prosperity. So let us bless our offerings now. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. On behalf of our pastor, our senior minister, Reverend Sylvia Sumter, we thank you for your givingness to this community. We thank you for showing up here and continuing to build the beloved community. We bless her in her time of healing. We continue to send her love and light. She continues to send us love and light. And we continue to know that the works that have been planted by her continue to grow exponentially. Now, for those of us who are watching us virtually, we invite you to look at the various giving platforms that will come up on the screen at the end of our service. And if you miss it, you can go to our website or you can call our office, and we'll be happy to send you information about how you can give or accept your gift by phone. And we do appreciate your generosity and consistency in giving and sharing from your abundance. I would like you to know that the prayer team is available to pray with you after the service. You can join the prayer circle at the front of the sanctuary after we have the christening. I also invite you to visit our bookstore for books, greeting cards, gifts, and more after service. And please do join us downstairs for fellowship. We have food that is always good and nutritious. And I am grateful We're going to have the christening for Braden and Braxton Johnson after the closing song. So if you do not intend to stay for that christening, please do leave the sanctuary so that your conversations don't overshadow that ceremony. It is a sacred time for the family and their close friends. I look forward to hugging you at some point before you leave here today, if that's possible, because I want to give you love, knowing that you have love to give as well.